Hi guys, for today we're going to be talking about invasive species. Now, an invasive species is a plant or animal or any organism that ends up in a place where it really doesn't belong. Things can go from place to place, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but it becomes an invasive species when it can grow out of control without anything that will to help stop it. There are in a normal balance, and you'll see this in one of the videos, a normal balance of life or an ecosystem, meaning like a set where life interacts. There are things that will grow and things that eat them, and then those things that eat them will probably be eaten by something else, and it and kind of keeps everything in order. So if there's not enough food, there won't be that many of that species. So, but if there's lots of food, then that species can have more, and then they'll have more, and it kind of keeps it all in balance. An invasive species comes in, takes over, and it doesn't have things that are going to make it be limited, and they're going to call it a limiting factor. And to make an invasive species or something doesn't have limiting factors, and it also can start interfering with what's supposed to be there. Some examples of invasive species just around here in our Trailworks classes, which some of you had before, you've taken it in the summertime. We look into, we go into the Hickson Forest, and we go in down by Myrick, and we clear out a lot of invasive species. And we really focus just on a few of them. And one of them is called garlic mustard. Garlic mustard came from people planting them in their gardens. They seed really well. Seeds blow away. They start growing in the woods and in other places, and they just take over. And they crowd out native plants, things that do belong there. So as part of our class, we'll dig through and we'll pull them up from the roots, all this garlic mustard, and we have to be really careful because if it's seeds, we just blow all the seeds around and it gets even worse. And we spend a lot of time doing that. It's gotten a lot better just from us doing that in just the area that we had, but garlic mustard, it's an invasive species, not the greatest thing. Another invasive species is an ornamental buckthorn. People brought in this ornamental buckthorn. It came from Asia, and they thought, oh, this looks great in our backyard. In my other house, my old house, we had these big, almost like hedges along the side, and they were pretty tall, of ornamental buckthorn, and they kind of kept it nice along the edges. They couldn't really see the neighbors. They couldn't really see me. It was nice in that situation, but they have these berries, and the birds eat the berries, and then they poop them out all over the place, and ornamental buckthorn grows everywhere, and it crowds out other things, and it's really just annoying. So we spent a lot of time in Trailworks cutting down ornamental buckthorn, pulling it aside, and then we had to be careful because ornamental buckthorn is one of those super tough ones where if you cut it down, the stump will grow 3 new stumps back. So that's ornamental buckthorn. Another example of invasive species for plant-wise that we would pull down is the wild honeysuckle. And people, including me, before I have grown honeysuckle, kind of like along the fences of my house, because it's really neat. It's kind of vines and it snakes around, and as long as you cut it back, it's nothing bad. Gets into the woods, there's nothing that eats it, so there's nothing that's going to limit it, and it just takes off and becomes huge bushes. So another example of an invasive species from around here is wild honeysuckle. Now you've seen a video where they're talking about limiting factors, and they're going to talk about things that will stop it and keep it, maybe having a predator that will eat it. That's really the key. But sometimes people bring these things in intentionally. Now we had, there was an invasive species, we don't hear about it too much, but it was called purple loosestrife, and there's still some of it around, but it was in the highways. It was just taking over everything. It went to seed, and it grew so much, and there was so much of it, especially if you looked out along the highways. So it was crowding out other things, and it was messing up any prairies that we had. So some people thought, well, this is a great idea. Let's just get something that eats it, bring that over here. It'll eat them all away, and then we won't have purple loosestrife anymore. So they brought these Asian beetle things over, and they introduced those there. And yeah, they ate the purple loosestrife. And then when the purple loosestrife was done, they started eating other things. And they ate a lot, and a lot, and a lot, and they're really a nuisance. And that's another invasive species we actually brought in intentionally. Sometimes they'll escape. You'll see it in one of the videos, the pythons, the Burmese pythons that are in Florida that are causing a lot of trouble. They might have been pets and somebody got away or somebody let them go, and they're wreaking havoc down in Florida. Another one is carp, and sometimes people bring in carp like, oh, let's have carp, it'll clean up the water. Or maybe sometimes, well, goldfish are carp, we'll go let some goldfish away. Problem we have now is there's the Asian carp, and they are working their way up from warmer waters up into trying to get in the Great Lakes. And one of our videos talks about what they're doing to stop it, and that's a pretty recent video. They have found some Asian carp up around here, and the Asian carp are these jumping carp. If you're in a motorboat, they freak out because they hear the sounds of the boat, and then they start flopping out of the water and jumping out of the water and then smacking into people. But that's not the only big issue. That one makes it, we're aware for a minute because it's really messing up our outdoor water sports. But a bigger issue is it's crowding out other fish. The fish that belong here, they don't belong here. So they're trying to figure out some ways that they can to get rid of those Asian carp. Because, yeah, they were kind of in Illinois, and now they found some of them coming up the Mississippi River. So we have to be aware of that. So invasive species are things that don't belong, and they are not a great thing. And sometimes when you introduce something new to get rid of those, you're making a problem even worse. So you have to be careful about any messing around with the ecosystem, any messing around with just how the balance of everything. There's long-term effects, just like in the sound of thunder. You have one change, and then over a certain amount of time, it can lead to lots and lots and lots of changes, and can really mess things up. So invasive species, watch the 4 videos. They're very good, and the first one, good introduction ones, and first 2, and then third one talks about 10 examples, and then the third one is those Asian carp. And 3 questions after that. Get to it.